of the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition way back in 1991. That's right, yeah, 1991. We had telephones back then, but that's about it. We had telephones and bicycles. He was also the executive director of Livable City, and was the transportation policy director at SPUR, the San Francisco Planning and Urban Research Association. So for a second I lost that. He was also the project director for the San Francisco Transit Riders Union. And so basically Dave has been involved in making our cities and now our entire state a much more livable, bikeable place. And welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Tony. Pleasure to work with you over all of these years.
Yeah, I wanted to show you and show that everyone out there the how we ended up working together. It was and together we put this together for what was then called Transportation for a Livable City. But that's where I first got to work with you, Dave, was on this fantastic little foot logo. And that made me pretty happy. Pretty happy to see that still in use today. And that was our, like I said, our first chance working together. That was actually a pretty easy one, wasn't it?
Not really, because I think we had the same challenge that we have now.
Maybe it just seemed easier.
The alternative. Maybe, because we were trying to clean public transit, car sharing, you know, this idea of public space and safe public space instead of highways through our city, and it was hard to depict that with lots of little pictures. You managed to do it with that very simple, powerful symbol.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the big lessons. One of the big lessons of branding in general is that keep it simple, and it communicates so much better. The more complexity you have, the more ambiguity that that brings out. And that's something we ran into when we were doing the work on the logo for CALBIKE. Was that complexity was the enemy. You know, it's a funny thing. You know, I show people this. I'm going to share my screen again, and play. So we always say, you know, what is a brand? And a brand it's a web, it's a network of memories, a network of experiences that are all sort of woven together. And you don't really think about brands until one of those experiences gets recalled from your memory, and suddenly the brand comes forth. I mean, and this is a coffee chat, right? So when I put up the word coffee, what do you think? Okay, well, I'm drinking Pete's. What kind of coffee are you drinking there, Dave?
Bicycle, of course.
Bicycle coffee, that's right, of course. Oakland's own Bicycle coffee. But what's funny is that all I have to do is this, and suddenly we're not talking about just coffee anymore, right? We're talking about a brand. We're talking about this brand, and in fact, we don't even have to put the word coffee up, because what's happened is that the brand itself has taken on meanings that it didn't have before. I mean, if I showed this to you 40 years ago, you'd say, what is that, right? But now if I show that to anybody practically in the Western world, this today, they'd say, oh, Starbucks coffee. So amazing that the meaning that that comes from comes from that sort of scenario. And that's sort of what we ran into with CALBIKE, right? It was a question of how do we get, as we said, same thing with Livable Cities. How do we get this to say the things that we want it to say, but keep it simple? without having to say everything. And Dave, tell us a little bit about you know, the makeup of CALBIKE, what it does, who's in it, and sort of what you do on a daily basis.
Sure. So you said that we're working to make the whole state bicycle friendly. And that's true, but we're doing it city by city, county by county, because that's where the decisions are made. We are a true coalition of our local partners, and we pursue state policy changes to make it easier for our local partners, local advocates like the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, and local government agencies like the Municipal Transportation Agency or the LA DOT, for example, to make the right decisions to transform their streets and communities into more bicycle-friendly places for all kinds of reasons, for public health reasons, for reasons of social equity. It's good for our economy. It's good especially for low-income people, and for reasons of our environment, quite obviously. Huge environmental crisis that bicycles can play an important part in solving. So that's what we do. Our mission, our goal, we have one goal, which is to triple bicycling by 2020, and a bunch of strategies to do it. I don't know how much you want me to get into all that.
Well, tell me a little bit. So the makeup of your coalition are how many bicycling advocacy groups across the state?
Anyway, yeah. So we have 16 professionally staffed local advocacy organizations that we work with, and dozens more that work in their own communities. They help us set our priorities, but we stay focused on Sacramento for the most part.
Right, and each one of them has their own board and their own constituency that they have to pay attention to as
Exactly.
well, right? So when it comes to doing anything with the brand, what we're looking at is not just 16 stakeholders at the table, including the folks right there at CALBIKE, your staff, but those 16 people also bring with them thousands and thousands of opinions and points of view, and so it's not like you can do this by fiat.
Well, and they represent an incredible diversity of California. We have the Inland Empire Biking Alliance that is working in the desert, really, and very sprawling areas, and lots of very poor areas. And we have the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, which is working in one of the densest cities in the United States, and a pretty rich place. We have San Diego, which is famous for its beaches. We have LA, which is famous for Hollywood. We've got such a diverse constituency that it's hard to say what is California, and our constituents will not agree with much that we could say is the essence of California.
That's right. Yeah, California.
Except for maybe that diversity
right
itself.
It's a state of mind, right? We know that, and you can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave, right?
You can never leave.
Those are the two things we know about California. But I want to show it with that in mind. Let me show a few more screens here. So this is a collection of bicycling logos. So yours is down there in the lower right-hand corner. But man, they very often show an outline of the state. They show a bicycle, and then they say the word bicycle somewhere on there, and they usually try to work the bicycle into the lettering of some sort of thing, and so they are largely all the same in concept. They're always trying to show a bicycle and show the state, and then they say we're the state bicycle organization, which is always kind of a funny thing. It's what we call a see and say logo. So So there's kind of a sea of see and says here that we had to contend with. And you know, when you look at your brand strategy, right? So you mentioned that, you know, this idea of health, safety, and prosperity for all Californians, and then your vision. Boy, that's a long vision. We didn't help you guys with your vision. We would have made a shorter vision, but if you look at it, you know, we envision millions of people riding bikes every day in California. I mean, that certainly is a great thing that I can get behind. The rest of it starts to, you know, clearly you can see in this vision how many different constituencies you have to pay attention to, and who you have to answer to. And when we looked at, you had done some word cloud stuff with again with a different firm than Chromium, but I think that some of it was very good. You know,
We did this ourselves, pretty much, Tony.
Oh, you did that internally. And so, you know, look at all these things that the coalition has to stand for. And look at this, right? What do you want to be, right? Big, organized, powerful, inclusive, effective, emotionally resonant. So there's a lot going on there. And as you pointed out, California, right? To some people it looks like this. To some people it looks like this. Some people, like in Humboldt, it looks like this. Part of it looks like this. Part of it looks like that. And, well, our part of it looks a lot like this. And so what is California, right? This was the question we came up with. Everybody had a different take on it. So really hard to pin that down. And how do you capture that in a brand identity? That was our challenge, right? And next was bicycles. You can see the one that I ride on the left there. They can look like this, right? They can be the Wicked Witch of the West style, or the Danish style, rather. You know, they don't even need pedals. The fact of the matter is, they don't need chains. Bikes could be so many different things, and that was a real challenge, right? What is California? What is a bicycle? Who rides a bicycle? And I want to show some of the things that we came up, not just us, but everybody you asked, you know, because you gave this thing, okay, the requirements were that it has to have a bicycle in it. It has to show something iconic about the state, and it
has to represent coalition.
Yeah,
That's
it has
really
to represent
important.
a coalition, and so there were all these sort of requirements that made that logo really difficult. And you know, let me show a few of our attempts and a few of the early attempts of other people that we ultimately deemed unsuccessful. And the reason why we deemed them unsuccessful was for the same reason that, well, many of the same reasons that we found all the other examples from other states to be not good enough for the California Bicycle Coalition. So there it is. It shows a bike, and it says California Bicycle Coalition, and it shows a bicycle tire, the state of California, and California Bicycle Coalition, and then it shows all the happy people, you know, and they represent a gear to a certain degree. So that one was actually better than most, but again, sort of, we thought, boy, that's going to be really difficult. And at first, when you look at it, do you think bicycle? Do you get the essence of a bicycle? You didn't really. It looked more like a rugby scrum or something. And then some of these ones below, okay, well, we thought, okay, sunshine to Silicon Valley, right? Making just the wheels, the C and the B. Making it earth-friendly with the infinity symbol. But none of these things really worked. And why why, Dave? Why do you think they didn't work? What was it that just didn't resonate about a lot of these attempts by both Chromium and other firms? What didn't work?
I mean, they weren't emotional for the most part. The one that was the one that we liked the most of that one of those other ones that you looked at was the sort of what you call the rugby scrum, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was conceptual and it showed people rather than just bikes, and that we liked. It showed diversity. It kind of showed everything that we wanted it to show, without being too blatant about it. So there was a subtlety about it, but it wasn't an aesthetically attractive logo, and it was very complicated, and therefore and therefore not as powerful, I think.
Yeah,
because it was
again, that complicated is the enemy of good design, and so that's exactly right. So we looked also at. Remember, there were a bunch of logos from other organizations that we did like. Some of them had bikes in them too, and then let me show those here. Those. I think the top left is Los Angeles, right? And there's San Francisco, South Florida, Silicon Valley, Napa with the grapes and the bike, and then People for Bikes, which is a national organization. I mean, these ones, they said a lot of good things, although there was, when you look at South Florida and Napa, there's a lot of complexity there. But some of them worked. You can sort of get the whole Silicon Valley one with the blurb.
Of those logos, 4 of them, not People for Bikes or South Florida, but the other 4 are our local partners, and they're the organizations that we are trying to coordinate and lead. And we felt a degree of competition. Our logo had to be as powerful as theirs. If we are going to claim to be a coordinating body and a leader in California, we can't have a logo that is weaker than our local partners. We have to match them. It's interesting that you included those 3 logos without any names on them. Anybody in our world, and the listeners maybe not quite so much, but anybody in our world will identify them with the organization right away. They'll know exactly what organization that they're referring to.
So they become very much like the Starbucks logo. To anybody who drinks coffee, even if you don't drink coffee, you know what that logo stands for. If you are involved in the bicycling or transportation or public policy world, you know what most of these bikes stand for. Most of these logos stand for without seeing any words. And that's so important because remember we talked about that the logo becomes actually this vessel into which you put meaning by being consistent and by being resonant and having a really good strategy and really good messaging. So that's why these logos are so well known in your sector today, right? Everybody knows them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question was, as you pointed out, and I'm just going to keep showing some slides here. What was California? What could we possibly show that everybody had in common? And we finally realized it wasn't. We said it's got to be something iconic. And so, well, there's the Golden Gate Bridge, but that doesn't help, right? Okay, so there's Hollywood Hills. That doesn't help. There's Lake Tahoe. That doesn't work. Everything was so regional except for one thing we finally realized, and that was the state flower, the California poppy. It's everywhere, right? Except for the very highest reaches. It goes from one end of California to the other, and it's iconic. It's our state flower. Everybody knows it. And those colors are just so remarkable. And so that's what we finally settled on is what could represent California, and that is the California poppy. And then the question was, what at its essence, what really is a bicycle? Well, at its very core, a bicycle is two wheels, bicycle, right? It's not about the chain, it's not about the gears, it's not about what kind of handlebars you have. It's about the fact that it has those two wheels. So that really was the essence of bicycle. And then when we talk about coalition, what is coalition? It's working together, it's banding together. And it's a marriage, as it were, right? And so how did we synthesize that into a logo? That's, and most people have already seen your logo out there, so this isn't like the big reveal. But here's how we presented it physically, visually. The colors of the California poppy, the two wheels of the bicycle, the rings, which are interlocked as the coalition, so that this is when it's spelled out. This is when it's shortened down. This is when it's presented in connection with all the other logos that it might ever be seen next to. Right? So there it is. It stands out. It's among the simplest. It's unique. It's proprietary. So it's got symbolism. But remember, most of that symbolism is stuff that is going to be put into it. Again, this is the vessel into which you're going to be putting all this messaging, all this meaning. And so the hope is that at a certain point, when anybody sees this, it can only mean one thing, right? And that's the California Bicycle Coalition. So that's really the idea.
I'm glad you picked those colors too. I was advised during the process that it was a risky choice because the powerful colors are red and blue, Dave. Those are the powerful colors. If you're trying to project power,
yeah.
You probably should use red or blue. And People for Bikes has a red and blue in their logo, for example. So I had to think about that, and I'm really glad that we chose orange and green and shaded orange and green because I think the simplicity of the logo accomplishes the communication of power that we need, and the colors are more unique.
Yeah.
And more unusual, I should say, and it'll be easier to recognize our brand with those colors than it would be red and blue.
Yeah, that's right. And we looked at this in red and blue, if you remember, and it just didn't have the meaning. It didn't say California anymore, and
right.
And it's very interesting how just as with the word coffee, when you change it to white lettering on green, it means Starbucks. When you take what these colors that we hear and change them to red and blue, suddenly it would seem more like some sort of national political organization, right? Or something. It just wouldn't say the same thing. This can only be the California Bicycle Coalition, and especially now that you own it. This is what's so incredible to me about identities, is that a really good one that's proprietary and appropriate and has meaning, it just fits and it just gets it. Now I know that certainly not everybody, in the audience here is going to think that this is a particularly good logo, and that's not necessarily, the point is not to please everybody, but the point was to make this thing, to make this identity that was uniquely, appropriately that of the California Bicycle Coalition.
Tony, I was a little surprised when we rolled it out. We got no negative feedback. I expected to get some. I expected to say, what is that?
Yeah.
Dave, that's not even a bike. Those look like wedding rings, or I don't know what I expected people to say, right? But we got no negative feedback, nothing but positive. People people love it. Even the detractors on our board who were nervous about something so simple being our logo are very comfortable with it now. So it's immediately fit our organization.
Well, that's what we strive for. is an identity that is embraced and means something and becomes powerful. So, Nisha, do we have questions? Do we want to take some questions from the audience?
Oh,
Did that idea of the sun was a piece of it. When we sold it, when we sold it to the board, as it were, or we presented it to the board, we mentioned the sunshine, and that the green also was the mountains, right? In it was the mountains, it was the redwoods, it was all these things. Of course, California is only green part of the year. Here in San Francisco, it's only sunny part of the year. but it captures those things too. So Charles, yeah, that you saw that, and that's exactly part of it. Yes.
and Tony, you didn't go into kind of all the meanings that it touches on, and it's not that we expect the logo to communicate everything that we wanted it to when people glance at it. But if I get the opportunity to explain it, I can, and it does touch on everything that we wanted it to touch on. It's nature, it's diversity, the choice of different colors and the gradations of colors, the different sizes of the wheels, the skinny wheel and the thick wheel indicate diversity. It's unity. The fact that they're linked up together implies unity and coalition. And of course, the colors are California, and the simplicity implies power. So it's everything that we wanted it to do. And when I get a chance to explain it to folks, I like to touch on all those things to remind people that that's who we are too as an organization. We project gentle power on behalf of a unified, diverse constituency.
Yeah, I think that's great. The idea that whether you have fat tires or skinny tires, you're part of the team here. I think that's an important one that I had left out earlier. Anything else out there, Nisha, that we should touch on?
Sure, I'm not totally sure I understand the question.
Like that it would appear in digital and social media situations.
Yeah, yeah. We had to do a lot of work to render it for different social media and digital representations. That took, someone else asked if that took a long time, and it sure did. It took months and months to get the logo represented, not just digitally, but on our printed materials as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tony was brilliant. Tony, it was very tough getting everyone to buy into it. We had two things going for us. One is that we had been doing this for so long, we were tired.
We were the third firm, I think, to work on this.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. The first effort was one of our board members who had the design skills did some work for us. Another board member said that doesn't represent us well enough. That's not good enough. Let's use my firm, or a firm that she recommended, and we got some good work there. But then I went to Tony, with whom I've had a long relationship, and he nailed it for us. So we had the benefit of all that time, and then this wasn't a decision that the board had to approve. So it's not like I needed their approval, but I needed their buy-in. I needed the buy-in of all of the people who care about the organization. So I needed to sell it to them. And so I invited Tony to one of our board meetings, and he walked the board through the process of coming up with this new look and feel and this new logo. And everyone was impressed. He saved my job. I mean, not like that's overstating it, but he made my job easy. He made the work of selling this to the board simple.
You know, we always say that we're not looking for sort of 100% consensus and love, undying love for something, but we want people to at least understand it and give the commitment that even if they disagree with some of the things, that they're at least committing to get behind it. And I think that this one almost ended up on the cutting room floor, as it were, right? I kept bringing it up, saying, "You guys, you should really look at this one again. These two circles. It's the simplest, I know, but it almost didn't make it. But I think that a good branding firm will advocate for something that they truly believe in, and that was the case on this one here.
I think we probably could have done a better job with that. It took us months from the time that it was approved to the time that it was implemented on our website. The website was actually the hardest, not because of the logo, but just the changing. We changed the technology of our website, so that took us months. We had a launch party in San Francisco, and we rolled it out all at once, but we didn't do a huge campaign around it or anything. So yeah, I think that if that answers the question, we didn't do a campaign around it, but we did celebrate it with a launch party and roll it out all at once.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it. My coffee's done. What about yours? I'm all caffeinated, and I'm all jazzed because I love talking about logos. We do a lot of strategy work, and we do a lot of cultural work, and that stuff is really cool. But it's very cerebral, and so when you have an identity, what I love about identities is that a really good one, it gives you this pleasure, right? It's just something visceral about it that, yeah, we need a great strategy. Yes, an awesome culture is something, but that's a long-term process. With a logo, you just really, you capture it, and it's just so much. It's so satisfying to see it come to life.
You showed our old logo, which was the letter CBC. With this two C's representing the wheels and the B being a person. It was derisively referred to by some of our board members as the big butt logo.
Big butt logo, yes.
Yeah, maybe you can bring that up for folks. And I had that business card for years, and I hated showing it to people. I was really not proud. And now I get to show this logo, and you didn't show the logo rendered on black. I don't know if folks can see that.
Oh, it looks nice, yeah.
Rendered on black. It's beautiful. So,
boy, I like that. Here, I want to show people. They maybe didn't notice this one before, but let me show. That's what it looked like before.
There you go.
I call it the pretzel person. Yeah, it was kind of weird, but it worked for many years, right? It was.
Yeah, there was an era when people made designs out of their initials.
Yeah. And this kind of worked. It's a very strange logo now when you look at it today. It does not project power, unity, or anything. It just is. It is what it is, I suppose, right? But who knows? It's one of those funny ones. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Well, Dave, I just want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody out there who joined
You're
us.
the one who deserves the thanks, Tony, for saving us from having a really bad logo and coming up with a brilliant one.
I
So,
just doing my job, sir. Just doing my job. Um, but yeah, appreciate that, and looking forward to this representing, representing the important work that you do. I think that before we leave, I sort of want to make a plug. I ride my bicycle to work every day possible. I ride it everywhere possible. People, say, "Oh, who's that old man on the bicycle?" But I love it. It makes me so happy. But at the same time, I'm so hyper aware, especially when we have a week like last week where two cyclists and a pedestrian were all killed, right all at the same time. I mean, it just shows how dangerous our streets are. And this is just in San Francisco. How dangerous our streets are and how important the work that you do and that Walk San Francisco does and these advocacy groups for not only more livable cities, but cities that are safe for the vulnerable road users that all of us are at some point, right? We're not always in our cars. You got to get out of that car at some point. And so at some point you become a pedestrian or you become a bicyclist. And it just breaks my heart to read these stories of people being injured and killed while just living a regular life, being a regular human being. And so important for us to be able to support the work of an organization like the CALBIKE Coalition.
well, I'm honored that I get to go to work every day, and this is my job, working to make it easier for people to ride bicycles. There's not many modes of transportation you can honestly say are fun.
That's right.
But you can honestly say that riding a bicycle is fun, and I wish more people had the opportunity to do that, and our streets need to be a lot safer, which is what we're all about. Good news is that it is getting a lot safer, in every community, even in San Francisco, the recent tragedies notwithstanding. Statewide, it's our data shows it's about 40. You have less than half a chance of getting killed than you did 10 years ago in 2000. The risk is 45% of what it was in 2000. So it's getting a lot safer than it used to. But it's obviously not anywhere near safe enough.
People always say to me, "Oh, bicycle, isn't that dangerous?" And I say, "You could slip and fall in the shower more often than than you would on a bicycle." But hey, what are you going to say? So anyway, yeah. Nisha, unless there are any other questions, I think we'll wrap this one up.
Oh, we don't have one yet. The San Francisco Bicycle Coalition is promoting the bicycle for everyday transportation. That's pretty straightforward, a little boring, but pretty straightforward. We haven't come up with ours yet, but that's our next work with Tony, I think.
I don't know. That's right. Maybe I can get this time the board meeting can be in Napa or something instead of Bakersfield. Although I did have a good time in Bakersfield, I have to admit, hot as hell, but what an interesting place. So, okay, well, thanks everybody. Thank you, Dave, and this concludes this Chromium Coffee Chat. And I'd like to invite all of you to sign up to be on our mailing list if you're not already at chromiumbranding.com. If you want to support the CALBIKE Coalition, the California Bicycle Coalition is at calbike.org, and we look forward to seeing all of you again on the next Chromium Coffee Chat. Thanks, and have a good day.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks, Nisha.
Thank you, Dave.